Hello, and thank you all for such a warm welcome. And thank you to Education Ministry of Philippines for inviting me to speak to you here today. I'm very honored to be this year's Global Teacher Prize winner, but I was one of a number of teachers shortlisted from all over the world, all of whom had changed their lives and made huge contributions to teaching. I was very pleased to be able to share half of my prize money with the other 9 finalists for 2020 prize. Global Teacher Prize does not recognize just me, it shines a light on teachers and the teaching profession to encourage people to give teachers the respect they deserve and to show how good teaching can change lives for the better. Today, I'm going to talk about my teaching, my school, my experiences, and what they have taught me about our profession. But I'll begin my story. Some people who grew up to be teachers say that they love school from the first day when they went there. But that wasn't always the case with me. Personally, I was not the best behaved student at school. I didn't like being kept inside all the time in front of a book. I often wanted to go outside and do other things. I also used to ask a lot of questions in the class. My teachers didn't always like this, and I was never very interested in grades. I was more interested in learning new skills and discovering the rich world that we all are part of. And so, from the beginning, as a teacher, I wanted to change how teaching was done and improve on what I had experienced in the school. When I went to teachers training college, I learned a lot from two teachers who convinced me that it could be done differently. They showed me how educators could inspire their students and help shape their communities over years and decades, rather than just focusing on rote learning and grades. This was an important lesson that still informs everything I do in the classroom today. My first teaching job, and so far only one, was in Chila Parishad Primary School in Paritewadi, Maharashtra state of India. When I first arrived there in 2009, I knew straight away that it could be a challenge. In rural India, there are often two types of obstacles in education. The first is a lack of resources and facilities. My school was at first located in between a cattle shed and a storeroom. And the second obstacle is traditional ideas about gender roles and education. For various reasons, which I will come to talk about later, the tradition in the village was for girls to be married at teenagers, and many left school before they had finished their education. In general, girls' education was not taken very seriously, though it was not much better for boys. In fact, only about a quarter of people in the village had finished their education. As a result, attendance in the school were sometimes as low as 2%, and the students were not achieving expected learning outcomes. I'm pleased to say we were able to turn these problems around. But how? First, there was a problem of students' poor learning. This was not only due to the lack of support for girls' education, it was a more general problem with how children were being taught. For instance, the curriculum and the textbooks were not in the local language of the community. So instead, they were in the Marathi language, a language which I know, but the students didn't really. My own experience at school made me aware that education has to respond to the students' need. And so I knew that something had to be done about textbooks. But first, to be able to help, I needed to learn the local language. In India, teachers don't always live in communities they teach in. However, I knew that to learn Kannada properly, I would have to become a full part of community. And so I moved into the village and began learning. It took me some time, but once I felt confident, I began translating the Marathi textbooks into Kannada for years grade 1 to 4 in my spare time. This was an essential first step, but I knew it would not be enough on its own. I knew that to really capture the students' attention, I would need more than the textbook. I would need to use other media beyond the printed page. And so I developed a way to add online material to students' learning experience by adding QR codes to the textbooks. The idea is that students scan this QR code with their mobile and then it takes them to YouTube videos on the topic or an educational website, or in some cases, pieces of video I had recorded with the help of my friends and colleagues and teachers. Most importantly, using different codes in a textbook, I could tailor the material to individual students or groups based on their learning style. We use poems, lectures, and stories, etc. This can be very useful. For example, when students respond better to video or other visual media rather than the text or audio, it can also be very helpful with the students who have special learning needs as well. Our school happened to be the first in the Maharashtra state to use QR coded textbooks. But since then, this way of teaching has spread far and wide as well. Following our success, the state education ministry and then the Indian national ministry has begun to use them, introducing more flexibility into the whole education system. The QR code features has also been very important for encouraging girls' education. Girls' education was not taken seriously in my village, and throughout many parts of the world, girls get far less education than boys. 130 million girls globally are out of school, and there are many reasons for this. One of is that the traditional societies tends to place more importance on boys' education because they believe that they will be breadwinners and the girls will have to raise the children. Girls are often encouraged to marry as teens, cutting short their education. There are various reasons behind this, but the often reason is economic. A dowry can provide much needed income for his family. In other cases, caring responsibilities are placed on girls, and this limits the time they can spend in a school. Sometimes There are also expectations that girls do not attend a school during their monthly cycle. This means they are far away for few days. As a teacher, we have to try to convince parents that girls' education is a worthwhile investment. This is important for improvement and empowerment of girls and women. But there are also other reasons. For instance, a literate mother has a 50% higher chance of her child surviving past the age of 5, and an educated woman invests as much as 90% of her income into her family and in the community, and thereby rising standards of living. As a solution to economic problem, it is estimated that 12, 12 years of universal education for girls around for girls could unlock about $30 trillion in earnings or equivalent. So, how do we boost girls' education and get families to see it as worthwhile? Rather than lecturing parents, our approach has been one of empowerment. We aim to build up the girls' self confidence, skills, and voices, and then help them to be their own best advocates. The QR coded textbook have meant that even if girls are asked to shoulder some responsibilities at home or are kept away from schools for some other reasons, they can still learn because they are learned through other media beyond the textbooks and discuss material with other students outside the classrooms. The girls begin to express themselves better and communicate more clearly. Part of empowering girls also involves making school a safe place for them. This means educating students about tactical behavior that is inappropriate with their classmates. Proper education on these matters within school is essential, and older children needs to understand why it is important to show respect to each other and respect boundaries. Creating a safe space also means making sure that girls have proper hygiene facilities, as a lack of these can discourage them from coming to school. Over last decades, we have made a great deal of progress. Parents in the community have started to believe in girls' education and see that school offer them a great deal. Today, there is a virtually 100% attendance in the school and there are no recent teenage marriages. 90% of our students are getting A grades. 98% have achieved expected learning outcomes before completing the school year. Our school is now rated the best school in the district. Most importantly, parents are no longer viewing girls as lesser than the boys, and the ratio of girls to boys in the community has now become more equal. I'd like to stop here and I must thank all of you for listening my thoughts. Thank you so much for inviting me. Have a good day.